Okay, a short video to look at two options. So we cleaned up the inletting and allowed the metal to drop into the inletting as it was cut from the machine that made this stock. That inletting and the form, the entire top cutting process was done a little bit too low compared to the factory situation. And I rather suspect the jigging error that was made with the machine, but it doesn't matter. The point is we got the steel down into the inletting as it was cut. And I think that all the dimensions, the clearances of the cocking handle to the top of the form, the clearance between the barrel channel and the barrel, which using a drill bit appears to be just about 3/32 of an inch, all seems like that's probably fine, but it is dropped down into the trigger assembly just a bit farther than intended from the factory. So I'm just have the camera pointed here so you can see that there is a gap here between the wood and the barrel. I don't know that it really shows up with the light the way it is. Let's try this. You can kind of see where the barrel channel is, and there's a gap there, as there should be. But let me bring you around over here to the trigger assembly, which is separate. The trigger and trigger guard are an assembly that are separate from the action in this wood. Oh, I have a piece of white paper here. So, and let me zoom in. Well, first off, let me say that there is no problem at all raising the action up and building up the wood to put the steel exactly where it was factory. And that is what the client originally requested, and I'm totally cool with doing that. I just wanted to start with the action dropped into the inletting as cut by the factory, because now we can build it all up equally to raise it to the right height. It just made more sense to me. It only required a couple little tiny cleanups on the inletting for the steel to drop down into the wood. But we will have a buildup of about an 1/8 inch of different colored fill material all on the top of the forearm, inside the inletting here in the barrel channel, inside the inletting all on here, building everything up the missing 1/8 inch. And that's cool. Over the last week I got my vacuum system set up. That's high pressure, high negative pressure vacuum system I use for vacuum bagging carbon fiberglass carbon fiber stuff. But since I moved into the shop, I haven't really set that up yet. So I did get that set up, and we use that to evacuate the air out of an epoxy slurry mix to get rid of all the little air bubbles in it. And frankly, I think it'd be a really cool project to do. I'd like to show you all it. I'd like to give it a try and see what kind of results we get. But it would be kind of a significant aesthetic bummer to the stock, which means it might then be called a master, and we'd copy it into a piece of wood to make a new stock, and that would be expensive. I'm not sure the value of the action is worth it. Monetary value, although they are rare and beautiful, so I mean it may be worth it to the client, and that's just fine. It would be a challenging job because we got the cheek riser hardware and this big screw on this side, these two screws on the side for the trigger guard, which placing them wouldn't be any more challenging than doing it on a brake barrel, but collectively it's all a fair amount of work and would have some cost. So let's just look at the baby steps method and see if one of these is adequate to turn this into a shooter. The first is call it good where it's at, except that it has a slight aesthetic bummer. So let me zoom in on it. Here we go. Try to get the camera to focus. Oh, I think it did. And let me get a little pointer tool. So what we're looking at is this little piece of mechanism right there. If the steel were up from factory, I think we would maybe see the screw head. I looked at some pictures online. It might look like that where we see the screw head. That looks about right, or it could be sucked all the way up here. That's really high. I don't think so. I suspect that the screw is probably usually visible in a factory installation somewhere in this range, maybe all the way up there, but that's really high. I'm not even sure that this would hit the rope. Yep, that would still release the sear, so I don't know, the client can tell me where in this range the factory installation may look like. So if we raise the steel up, we would get that appearance. If we leave it where it is, it looks like that, where we're seeing a little bit of this mechanism. Let me really zoom in on it. Oh, other way. Just trying to fool the camera into focusing good there. And you provide a little shadow. Help you see what we're talking about. So it looks like that currently. Call it a shooter and we're done. Or we bed it up and we get something like that. Maybe all the way up like that, but that's looking really pretty high. Now let me hold that in place and move up your view. So we'd be looking at that high. Uh-oh. Trying to do that one-handed. Okay, there we go. Let's see, let me do that again. So it would be built up like about that high. So this height of build-up all on the top of the forearm, all the way underneath the barrel, and the at least the hard points of the mounting spots for the action. I don't think we really have to build up much more than just the mounting points, so that's not a big deal. Oh, and then of course this is going to be up so high out of the wood, we'll be bedded up to the action when we build this up. So anyway, that's going to be the aesthetic bummer of the build-up job. It'll be this whole thing that I think, you know, anybody in a glance is going to see it. That's going to be pretty much visible, not really like a hidden thing. And I think that maybe this little aesthetic difference would be something that nobody would notice, except of course the person who's really into these actions, like the client is. Yeah, see, that's what we're looking at right now. Yeah. Oh, there. Well, that's interesting, actually. I hadn't thought of that. If we allow the action to move forward a little bit, it actually hides that a little bit more. I have to relocate the mounting holes, though, because I think where we're at right now, all the way back, yeah, we're lined up with the bolt holes, so I think this is probably what we're looking at. So that's the option. Build it up, make it look like that, or bed the hard points to where it's at right now and call it done. Let me know what you all think, but mainly it's the client who is going to dictate what I do. Thank you for watching.